And now back to Nemo Nation with Dave Nemo, Jimmy Mack, and of course, Phone Master Dre.
Today is the birthday of Teddy Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt Jr., 1858. He's the man who said, when they call the roll in the Senate, the senators do not know whether to answer present or not guilty.
Nicely done, by the way. Welcome
back. The more
back.
things change, the more they stay the same.
By the way, I've always said if you really want to find out about Teddy Roosevelt, the defining moment of his life, everybody should read it. It's a wonderful book. We had the author of it on the show a couple of years back. It's called The Crowded Hour.
Yeah,
The Crowded Hour, which was about that monumental hour, Dre, when they went up San Juan Hill. They took San Juan and Kettle Hill, and he was actually awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor by Bill Clinton posthumously, along with the Buffalo Soldier who stood by his side as they took both hills. Mm-hmm. The Crowded Hour. He felt it redeemed his family's name because his father didn't serve in the Civil War, paid somebody else to serve for him. And Roosevelt said, if I'm going to send boys to war as the Undersecretary of the Navy, I'm going. And he went. By the way, I want to take the honor here of introducing our next guest, Mike King. He is the host and executive producer of the Freight Buyers Club. You can find him at thefreightbuyersclub.com. He's also got his own YouTube channel. You can connect to him on LinkedIn, and you can subscribe to the FBC newsletter on LinkedIn, by the way. Good morning to you, Mike. Welcome. What's the word? Johannesburg. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Thanks very much for having me on. It's a real honor. That was actually last week. I was in Joburg in South Africa. I'm back in London now.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Fantastic.
I can tell you, it was better in South Africa.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've heard you. Is it raining right now in London?
It's not even raining. It's not that good. It's sort of grey and overcast and a bit miserable.
So it's London.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
So it's London, basically, is what it is. By the way, we love...
Yeah, I'm based in London. I was just down at a press do in South Africa last week.
Just to let you know, my wife and I've been to London. This is the first year I haven't been to London in a long time. And my wife and I, by the way, did our honeymoon, almost 2 weeks in London. We love the city very much. So despite that gloominess, I think it's one of the great Christmas cities in the world. I'm getting all in the weeds here. Mike, I'm going to turn this over to Dave because he's got some questions for you.
Hey, Mike, good morning. Dave Nemo here.
Away,
and
Dave.
Thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to say the T word here now and maybe just let it lay there and ask you to pick it up from what you saw in Johannesburg last week and what you think is coming. But the T word, of course, is tariffs. And it
Tariff,
really...
okay. Yeah, for sure. So, there's quite a lot going on with global trade. So I was in Johannesburg last week for the launch of a joint global connectedness report from DHL and NYU Stern, Professor Stephen Altman. They found that global trade this year has basically been more robust and has grown faster than at any time except during COVID years since 2010. That's in the first half of this year. So all good, trade goes on, but at the same time, the tariff element is sort of changing things a little bit. So the US, the slowest sort of growth in trade is on trade lanes to and from the US, and that's what forecasts are saying moving forward as well. Yeah, and a lot of this is uncertainty, higher costs, and tariffs, obviously. Give people an idea. So I've always recorded my podcast. I normally record on a Thursday and Friday, and this year I've had to start recording on Monday and Tuesday to get them out the same week because I never quite know what's going to change over the weekend. And I'm very glad I'm recording later today because obviously we've heard that there's a possible deal between China and the US over the weekend. So if I'd recorded on Friday, I would have been totally obsolete by now.
Let me ask you about that possible deal as well, too, to kind of give our listeners a sense of what is in the works and what's cooking, because one of the things about the new trade, about the new trade and tariff situation that is really interesting to me is that it could change any minute. It's kind of like the weather in New Orleans. If you don't like it, give it a block. So can you kind of break that down for us?
Well, yeah, I mean, again, it's the unknowns that everyone's been trading around. So what's essentially been happening, if you look at the numbers, if I could give you trade numbers, or I could give you, if you look at container shipping volumes, growth on trades to and from the US it's been up and down, but overall it's down compared to last year. Whereas, say, trade and most containerized trade, for example, is moving out of Asia into other. They're the key driving trade, so it's outbound from Asia. Outbound from Asia to everywhere else is growing really hand over fist. To the US, it's down. So that trade is, on the one hand, we've got a reworking of global trade rules in quite a fundamental way, in a way we haven't seen for decades. I'd like to know what Teddy Roosevelt would have thought about it. Actually, he was he wanted fair business, so I don't know where this would sit with him. I heard you mention him earlier. This particular deal, it's not signed yet. So I think where we were was there was a threat of 100% tariffs on China, and China was reverting and putting controls in place on rare earths, which US producers need. So the deal was around there. And then the other element of this was US exports of agricultural products, which China's a big buyer of agricultural products from around the world. And it's been pivoting towards Brazil, particularly for soybeans, and some other countries for wheat, as opposed to buying from the US since the first Trump presidency. Well, this year it's ramped that right up. So this is the other element of this deal. But at the moment, again, it's all back to the word uncertainty. No one knows if this deal will proceed, on what form. At the moment, we just know there's a framework being signed that will lead to some sort of tariff and some sort of relaxation of the export of rare earths from China, which is a big producer. But at the moment, we don't know for sure.
Yeah, and that
kind of
that
answers your question.
and it does, by the way. And the big follow up too is the fact that a lot of a guy who just walked into the studio to join us this morning, our friend Brad Bentley, who is part of the Fastport organization that actually sponsors the studio. He and I spent some time in Brazil, and when we were down there, what ended up happening was there was a lot of excitement in Brazil because they felt like that they had, for the first time, really gotten themselves a cash crop with the soybeans. In some ways, it's really altering the situation for a lot of other countries, that the U.S., in conceding these markets, has actually opened up a lot of possibilities for these folks to actually expand their trade possibilities, that the U.S. is no longer, the only person that China is going to for soy. That really changes the dynamics for the possible economic expansion of places like Brazil, does it not?
It certainly does. I mean, we've seen that since the first Trump presidency, exports of soy. But China, it's not just where China buys from, it's where China invests in. So it's really, when you leave a vacuum, it's always filled somehow, and China's filling that vacuum around the world. We've seen that a lot this year. But Brazil's a brilliant example of exactly that. I mean, it's been investing in ports, it's been investing in rail, it's been investing in road. So Chinese investment in Brazil, it's not just about buying soybeans, it's about the whole infrastructure as well, and the logistics setup. You could say the same about iron ore there as well. It's the biggest buyer of Brazilian iron ore. So where the US has sort of pulled out of that trade, then China's gone straight back in. But I mean, maybe for your listeners, an interesting one with Brazil is, I mean, we all like a coffee. Most of the coffee comes from Brazil that you guys are buying, that I would buy. It's now cheaper for me because the US has got a 40% tariff, or no, it's a 50% tariff on Brazil, I think. Brazil produces 40% of the world's coffee. And, like Europe, the US doesn't produce coffee, so we all import it. So basically, I think the latte, I saw some research this morning from Vizian, from Kyle Henderson, CEO of Vizian, actually. It's worth checking out. So US lattes are now 21% more expensive as of this year. So that's just there's some other interesting ones. Madagascar got hit with some really high tariffs. They've been reduced now. That produces vanilla. I mean, do you really want to take our ice cream and coffee away?
Yeah, I have to tell you, by the way, the thought that actually coffee is more expensive in the United States than it is actually where you are right now. And guys, by the way, if you're just joining us, Mike King, the creator and former host of the Lodestar podcast, which launched in 2021, he now dedicates all of his time to the Freight Buyers Club, which is the fastest growing video and podcast platform for global logistics and trade professionals. The thought that you are in London and I pay more for coffee than you do is staggering to me. That is how much the world has changed with these new policies in place, right?
Yeah, I mean, but if you think of they'll go back to the Madagascar example. Not many, obviously, it's Madagascar vanilla. No one else produces it, and the US hasn't got an export market into Madagascar. So a 40% tariff, apart from threatening 60,000 jobs in Madagascar, it doesn't open up a market in Madagascar. It just takes away the ability to buy vanilla, which US exporters actually use in a lot of products. They can't get it anywhere else. So they either pay the tariff, but for them, that might be the difference between whether they're competitive selling that product, say, to Europe or to somewhere else, or not. So it's not just whether my coffee is more expensive than yours. My export product in Europe might be now more competitive than an export product out of the US because of that input. We're seeing that across industries as well. It's really quite interesting how it's all playing out. But I would also add that the headline tariffs they're not being as damaging as people originally imagined. So I think the Madagascar tariff's down to 15%. There's so many exemptions and workarounds that it's not entirely clear, but it's certainly putting a big amount of pressure on the Customs and Border Protection, because they've got an awful lot more work to do. And people always say that cargo or freight always finds its way a little bit like water. People always find a way around tariffs, and there's some big numbers. Colombia is becoming a big buyer of Brazilian coffee, and I think that's got slightly lower tariffs than Brazil when it exports to the US. So are we seeing re-exporting out of Colombia? Maybe that'll keep the cost of the latte down.
Well, I made the joke about latte, but that's exactly the kind of stuff that people don't realize as well, too, because, we've actually talked about the idea with stores in the United States that often when Macy's can't carry something, Dave, when they can't carry something, they'll just kind of unload their extra stock onto Marshalls or TJ Maxx's. I mean, in many ways, we're kind of converting countries like Colombia into these places where, well, we'll just export it, to this country, and then they have less of a tariff on them, so then they'll bring it into us. Is that the kind of model we're talking about? Maybe people begin to figure that kind of stuff out and then bring the prices down again?
Well, yeah, it varies across industries and verticals, but for example, I mean, if this is a trade war with China, well, we can see how Chinese producers, if the tariffs are high on China, I mean, China's massive investment into Vietnam shows what that strategy is. There's a new rule on transshipment, so it's the CBP have got to work out, or the shipper has got to work out whether it was actually made in a country or whether it was transshipped by there. But if you look at the exports from Vietnam over the last few years, China's been investing hugely there. Same in Brazil, same in South America, same in Mexico. So it's not just as simple as putting a tariff on a country if the idea is to target that country's companies. If those companies are just moving, they just move to a different country, another different place. You look also at the investment in India. Chinese, a lot of that is Chinese too.
Well, Mike, we've got to let you go because of the way this kind of thing is put together. Please promise us you'll come back for a 30-minute segment. I'm going to make you on the air. That way you have to tell me no on the air. Promise me you'll come back at some point sooner rather than later. So I
would. It's been my pleasure. I would love to anytime.
I want to let people.
Thanks so much for having me.
Real quick, I want to let people know this real quick. In case you don't know, Mike, along with all the other things I've said about him, was named Seahorse Maritime Journalist of the Year in 23 and 24, was the runner-up for Multimedia Journalist of the Year in both years. His early accolades include the Air Cargo Journalist of the Year, the News Journalist of the Year, the Supply Chain Journalist of the Year, and in 2018 he was recognized as International Road Transport Journalist of the Year by the IRU, and he is welcome back anytime when he's not contributing to The Economist and Business Insider. Mike, it's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. Be well.